Assalamu alaikum dear students and welcome to the second lecture of Advanced Research Methods class. I am Farhan Sarwar and today we are going to discuss the scientific research and hallmark of scientific research. So let's take a look at the outline of our lecture. First we will discuss the scientific research approach. What is difference between science, non-science and pseudoscience? The hallmarks of scientific research, that is purposiveness, rigor, testability, replicability, precision, objectivity, generalizability, and parsimony. So if you recall, in chapter 1 we discussed in detail that research is very helpful for managers to make decisions. And managerial decisions which are based on the results of a good research tends to be more effective. We can define research as an organized, systematic, data-based, critical, objective inquiry into a specific problem that needs to be solved. But with objective, we can also add the word scientific because both basic and applied research are carried out in a scientific way. So it is important for us to understand what the term scientific means. So before we discuss further what the scientific approach towards research means, let's look at an example. Now you know that coronavirus, a pandemic, has spread globally and it is the biggest challenge the humanity is facing right now. There are some myths or misconceptions that have spread regarding the treatment of coronavirus. For instance, some people in the beginning were thinking that herbal remedies and other drugs can help treat the new virus. Or perhaps antibiotics are effective in treating the new coronavirus. There was also a misconception in the beginning that coronavirus only affects the older people. As a matter of fact, antibiotics can only work against bacteria, not viruses. There is a scientific evidence for that. And secondly, up till now, no specific medicine is recommended for treatment. However, the clinical trials or research is going on regarding the malaria medicine to be an effective treatment of coronavirus, or in some cases, research has also shown the plasma of a person who has recovered from the corona disease. The plasma can be an effective treatment for the patients. So the reason I have quoted this example is to give you an idea that whenever a phenomena or an event occurs in the world, there are certain facts or scientific explanations that basically relate to that phenomena, while there are certain myths or pseudo-scientific explanations related to that particular explanation. And we need to differentiate between the scientific approach and the pseudo-scientific as well as the non-scientific approach. So, a true science such as psychology, physics, chemistry, or biology relies on some established scientific method to acquire the information, as well as there are some certain rules or certain techniques to determine whether the information that is acquired is it valid. In addition, a true science always adopt certain scientific methods. All those methods that we are going to discuss further when we will proceed in this particular course, they will adopt those scientific explanation to explain a phenomena. So perhaps if we say that which medicine is the cure for corona, you need to know that a scientific trial, the trials that are going on, perhaps a trial is nowadays going on the medicine of malaria, that it can be an effective treatment of corona. So if you follow the news, you would know that they would not straight away start recommending those medicine until a trial has been first conducted. And secondly, if you've seen that the plasma of a patient who is recovered can be an effective treatment. So there are certain scientific evidence which we use. If we just say that using a ginger or taking the steam, these are actually not the scientific explanations. These are just our intuitions, or perhaps beliefs are based upon one or two cases that we have just observed. In essence, a scientific explanation is based upon the application of accepted scientific methods. And when will we proceed in this particular course, you will learn more about that. And there are certain hallmarks of the scientific research we will discuss later in this chapter. On the other hand, there are some non-science disciplines as well, such as philosophy, political science, perhaps history, and these disciplines may also apply some systematic scientific technique to acquire information such as surveys or interviews. However, there is some difference on how the final results or opinions can be made. For instance, a philosopher may differ on what they consider to be an ethical behavior, and they may support their position through logical arguments. In case there is no empirical test through which one view or another is supported, then that discipline cannot be called a scientific. So, if one philosopher is saying that utilitarian method is the best approach to our governance, and the other is saying that laissez-faire is a better approach, then we cannot establish a scientific explanation. However, if there is a study which uses the scientific research design to carry out the analysis that which of the approach is better, then we can say that this is a scientific explanation. A pseudoscience, on the other hand, literally means a false science. So, as we have discussed before regarding the myths of corona, you would appreciate that there is a lot of pseudoscience that is going around in the society. According to a researcher, Robert Carroll, pseudoscience is a set of ideas based on theories put forward as scientific when they are not scientific actually. There are lots of self-help books and management books around which are not based upon the scientific research approach or the proper evidence. However, they are very popular. These popular remedies, these herbal remedies that is going around, like ginger is a cure for the corona, or steam is very good for corona. All these do not employ the scientific research to compile the idea or the cure, but they are based on the popular beliefs and practices. So what are the characteristics or hallmark that makes a research scientific? And we will discuss each of these one by one. When we are going to discuss all these hallmarks, we will consider the case of a manager who is interested in investigating how employees' commitment to organization can be increased. So our research question here is how to increase the employees' commitment to the organization. So our first hallmark is parsimony. Parsimony refers to simplicity in explaining the phenomena or a problem that occurs, and a simple approach to generating the solution for that problem. Economy in research is achieved when we build our research model with a lesser number of variables that would explain the variance or change more efficiently as compared to a large number of variables that can add only marginal addition to the variance. So parsimony can be introduced with a good understanding of the problem and important factors that influence it. Our second hallmark of scientific research is purposiveness. The manager who wants to find out the factors that improves the organizational commitment of the employees started the research with a definite aim or purpose. As we will see in the next topic, that why the problem statement is important to the research is because it gives us an aim or the purpose. The focus is on increasing the commitment of the employees because it will be beneficial in many ways. For instance, previous research has shown that an increase in organizational commitment will translate into less turnover, less absenteeism, and increased performance levels. Therefore, since all these factors will definitely benefit the organization, the research has to be purposive. The next hallmark is rigor. A research should be rigorous, which means that it should be carefully designed, it should be thorough, and there should be a high degree of accuracy in the research investigation. So rigorous is represented by carefulness, thoroughness, and degree of accuracy in research designs or research investigations. Let us see. The manager first of all asks 10 to 12 of its employees to indicate that how their level of commitment can be increased. If the managers reach a conclusion only because of those 10 or 12 employees, the whole approach to the investigation will be unscientific. Why? Because of the following reasons. Number one, the conclusions are incorrectly drawn. Why? Because they are based on response of just few employees. Their opinions cannot be the representative of all entire workforce. Number two, the manner of framing and addressing the questions would add the biasness. Why? How come the manager just ask some random questions and determine that this will increase organization commitment? Number three, there might be many other important influences on organization commitment that this little or small sample of respondents cannot express during the interview. So, as we have seen, that a rigorous research should involve a good theoretical base and a carefully thought out methodology. And these factors would enable the researcher to collect the right kind of information from a larger sample with less degree of bias, and this will facilitate a suitable analysis of the data. So the following topics that we will discuss will address these theoretical and methodological issues in detail. Our next hallmark of a scientific research is testability. What is testability? It is the property of a research that basically applies to the hypothesis of a study. A hypothesis is a tentative yet a testable statement which predicts what you expect to find in your empirical data. For instance, if you can see a hypothesis in our study that those employees who perceive greater opportunity for participation in decision making will have a higher level of commitment. Now the question is that how did we come up with this tentative statement that we will test later on? The method is that we derived it from the previous literature or the theory, and it can also be based on the logical belief of the researcher. Why? Because the researcher has gone through the previous literature or previous studies. So, a scientific hypothesis must be testable, and testability means that whether the tentative statement supports the data that we have collected or not. Replicability. Replicability is the extent to which a restudy or another study is possible because in our previous study we have adopted a proper research design. The results of the test of hypothesis, the hypothesis that we developed in our study, should be supported again and again when the same type of research is repeated in similar situations. Replication is basically gives us the idea that our hypothesis was not supported just by chance, but it is a reflective of the true state of affairs in the population under study. Our sixth hallmark of scientific research is precision and confidence. Precision basically refers to the closeness of the finding to reality based on a sample. You know, and you will also learn later on, that we cannot approach or reach the whole population to collect the data. So what we do is that we take a small sample out of it. Precision basically reflects the degree of accuracy. Accuracy of what? The accuracy of the result on the basis of the sample to what really exists in the whole universe or the population as we say it. In business research, however, we are never able to draw definite conclusions on the basis of the data analysis. What is the reason? Because we have to base our finding on a small sample, and there is a larger chance that the sample does not reflect the exact characteristics of the phenomena that we try to study. Moreover, our study can have measurement errors or some other errors that we will discuss later on as we will proceed further. Along with precision also comes the confidence in our study. We would like to design a research that ensures that our findings are as close to reality as possible so that we can place confidence in the result. Confidence refers to the probability that what we have estimated from our data is correct. How correct? Maybe we can have a confidence that it is 90% of the time that our results are correct, or there is a 95% probability that our result is correct, and there is a 5% chance of error. Mathematically or statistically, this is known as the confidence level, or the famous p-value, as we often call it, the significance level. The greater the precision and confidence in our research, the more scientific is our investigation and more useful will be the results. We may discuss this topic further in the sampling chapter. The seventh hallmark of the scientific research is being objective. The conclusions that we draw through the interpretation of the result of data analysis, those conclusions should be objective rather than subjective. Those conclusions should be based on the facts of the finding derived from actual data and not the data that we can collect from our subjective or emotional values. The more objective our interpretation of the data, the more scientific the research becomes. If the hypothesis relating to organization commitment was not supported, we can say that considerable time and effort is wasted in finding way to how create opportunity for employee participation in decision making. Likewise, if research shows that increased salary is not going to increase the job satisfaction of employees, then implementing a revised increased pay system will only drag down the companies financially without attaining the desired objective. So such a useless exercise can be based on a non-scientific interpretation, but we cannot say that scientifically this is true or this is scientific approach how to increase the organization commitment of the employees. The last hallmark, and that's very important part of the scientific research, is whether our research generalizable. Generalizability refers to the scope of applicability of the research findings in one organizational setting to other setting. So if this means that greater job satisfaction leads to higher organizational commitment, is this finding of our research study can be applied to other organizations? For instance, we can say that participation in decision making enhance organization commitment. We found the support for that hypothesis in our study. Can it be applied to variety of manufacturing, industrial or service organization and not merely in the organization that we did the research? So for a wider generalizability, the research sampling design is very important consideration. However, we will discuss these topics later on in sampling chapter. Thank you. This was all for today. Let's repeat our 8 hallmarks of scientific research. So we discussed in this chapter that a scientific research is different from a non-science or a pseudo-scientific explanation. There are certain characteristics of a scientific research, that is, it should be parsimonious or simple or straightforward. There should be some purpose to it. It should be rigorously designed. It should be testable so that the hypothesis that we have developed can be retested in another study. It should be replicable, that is, the research design that we have adopted can be replicated in some other study settings. The result should be precise and we should have confidence upon them. The research should be objective and it should be generalizable to other organizations or other settings or other industries. Thank you. That is all about today's topic. Take care. Allah Hafiz.